to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true.
While Pete Buttigieg tried to prove his youth isn't a weakness.
And when I get to the current age of the current president in the year 2055, I want to be able to look back on these years and say my generation delivered climate solutions, racial equality, and an end to endless war.
Both nights were filled with attempts to win over Hispanic voters, a sort of testing ground for immigration proposals, and also a test of their language skills.
Presidente ha atacado.
It was also, some told us, a reset on messaging.
This was clearly a beginning of a fight for the soul of the party. And if this was a beginning of that fight, the progressives won hands down.
Did you see any separation from the candidates?
It was all issue focused. There was no one was talking about hand size. Nobody was trying to make up nicknames.
Despite any contrasts on issues, they were all in lockstep on the goal.
We'll say adios to Donald Trump.
The arguing now may just be about who leaves Florida with the political wins at their back. In Miami, I'm Scott Thuman.
The reality of it is, if the United States isn't engaged, the Taliban will grow, and they will have bigger, bolder terrorist acts. We have got to have some present there.
The Taliban was there long before we came in. They'll be there long before we leave.
Well,
we cannot keep U.S. troops deployed to Afghanistan thinking that we're going to somehow squash this Taliban that has been there, that every other country that's tried has failed.
I didn't say squash them. When we weren't in there, they started flying planes into our buildings. So I'm just saying right now,
the Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. Al-Qaeda did.
Well,
Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11.
I understand.
That's why I and so many other people joined the military, to go after Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban.
It's a pretty intense debate between Congressman Tim Ryan and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard from the debate on NBC News. I reached out to all of the candidates at the debate for interviews. Some gave me a few minutes in the spin room, some walked right past us, and some gave me a one-on-one interview. Representative Gabbard spoke with us, with me in Miami, just hours after her debate Wednesday night. Take a listen to what she had to say. Congresswoman Gabbard, thank you so much for joining us. So I watched the debate last night, and I would say you had a very, very good debate. What did you think of your performance?
I think it was good. It was a great opportunity to be able to have that platform to introduce myself to the American people, to let them know why I'm running for president.
I don't know if you saw this, but post-debate, you were the top Google search of all the candidates.
Good. So mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Speaking of mission accomplished, that's where I would like to go with the Iran situation. You seem to have some strong thoughts on that. First of all, you have a military background. Please tell our audience what your military background is.
I've served for over 16 years in the Army National Guard and deployed twice to the Middle East. Still serve as a major now. In Congress, I've served over 6 years on the Foreign Affairs, Armed Services, and Homeland Security committees. And I understand the importance of our national security, keeping the American people safe, as well as the terrible high human cost of war.
Tell us what we're doing right or wrong with respect to Iran.
The strategy this president has taken towards Iran has been hugely problematic and a failure. I think the sooner that he recognizes that and shifts course, the better for the American people and the better for the world. I mean, this started with his coming in and tearing up the Iran nuclear deal. Rather than keeping the deal in place, which would continue to prevent Iran from developing or obtaining a nuclear weapon, and having a simultaneous parallel negotiation to address the issues with the deal, to try to strengthen it. Instead, he tore the whole thing up, escalated crippling sanctions against Iran, did something unprecedented in designating Iran's military as a terrorist group, just like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and then went and deployed a ton of American troops to the region, further escalating the situation, pushing us closer and closer to the brink of war.
What would President Tulsi Gabbard say if you know, in a vacuum, you're president tomorrow? How do you fix where we are? You can't do anything about histories, but how do you fix where we are if you step into the office?
If I'm president today, the first thing is we've got to re-enter that Iran nuclear agreement. That is critical for us to make sure.
Tell me about sanctions.
that is critical for us to make sure that Iran does not then be in a position where they're developing a nuclear weapon and start to roll back these crippling sanctions that were part of that deal, saying if you comply, then these sanctions should be rolled back. Look, one of the main problems that we have right now is there are no direct lines of communication between the United States and Iran. And so when you have these situations like some we've seen in the past in the Strait of Hormuz, where it takes just one spark that could launch a larger war, you've got to have these open lines to de-escalate and figure out how do we prevent a war from being started. I think that's a very positive thing that happened through the Iran nuclear agreement negotiations, was you had those open lines. There were some problems then, and they were able to immediately de-escalate rather than start what would be a devastating and costly war.
I only have about 30 seconds or so. What is the number one concern that President Tulsi Gabbard would have for America?
The number one concern that you didn't hear anyone else talking about last night is the fact that we are at a greater threat of nuclear catastrophe today than ever before in history. Our leaders have failed us, pushing us into this new Cold War and a nuclear arms race that is making us and the world less safe. And it's costing us more and more taxpayer dollars, dollars that should be used to invest in serving our people, serving our needs, healthcare, protecting our environment, good paying jobs, rebuilding infrastructure. Those needs are great. We cannot separate our foreign policy from our domestic policy.
Congresswoman Gabbard, thank you very much for your time, and good luck.
Thank you so much.